What would surprise you about the wines of Greece? Why did the country's financial crisis actually help wine producers? How does the Greek island of Santorini, its volcanic soils, produce wines of stunning depth and freshness at the same time? Those two things usually don't go together. And what are some insider tips if you want to visit Greece and some of its wine regions? Well, tonight you're going to get all those tips and stories from our guest, whom I'll introduce momentarily. If you're watching this video on the replay, please get into the comments and type the word replay. Where are you logging in from? What's your city? What's in your glass, if anything? What's the weather like? And of course, if you're joining me on this live stream, I want to hear from you as well. I'm Natalie McLean, and I host online food and wine pairing classes, and you've just joined one of the most passionate groups of wine lovers who gather every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern to talk to the most interesting people in the world of wine. Now, this video is based on a recording that I made for my podcast, the Unreserved Wine Talk, and you can listen to it there. But I will be here on this live stream in the comments. So I'm here with you in the comments. So get in there. What questions do you still have? What tips and stories are you enjoying? I want to hear from you, please. All right, just before I introduce our guest, let me say that two of you are going to win a copy of his terrific book, The Wines of Greece. All you have to do is email me at natalie@nataliemclean.com and tell me that you'd like to win a copy, and I'll choose two people randomly from those who contact me. Back to our guest, Konstantinos Lazarakis. You can correct me if I've got that mucked up.
It's Lazarakis, but I don't
Lazarakis,
really care.
there we go. I should have brushed up on my Greek before we spoke, Konstantinos. He is the first person in Greece to have passed the notoriously difficult Master of Wine exams. He is also the author of The Wines of Greece, published by the Académie de Vin. As well, he serves as the president of Wines and Spirits, the Professional Center, general manager of Aeolos Wines, and CEO of Wine Wonders. And he joins us now from his home in Piraeus, Greece. Welcome, Konstantinos.
Well, thank you, Natalie. A big thank you out of my heart for having me here.
Our pleasure.
It's very important for me, and I think your interest in Greek wines is something that might surprise some people, but really gives me huge delight.
Oh, terrific. I love Greek wines, and I want to learn more about them. I must admit, I don't know a lot, but I'm learning all the time, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
You will be getting a lot of bang for your bucks.
Excellent. I like to hear that. Good. We're of the same mindset here. So before we dive into your wine career, tell us about your previous life as a musician.
Well, I started feeling myself. My what I call inner life started back in '87. I was 14 years old, and I started listening to heavy metal. I remember the first time. I think Scorpions' Blackout was an LP that one of my teachers was listening. I was staying close to him, and I was walking past his window, and I heard something that it was really intrusive, but at the same time exhilarating. Next day I said, what was that? Oh, that's Scorpions, that's not for you, you're too young for that. Then after a year I bought my first guitar, and I fell in love with music. I'm still pretty much in love with music. I'm not playing the guitar anymore. I was dreaming about being a heavy metal star, but that didn't really go well.
Well, at least you got to start somewhere with a passion for something, and that can easily translate to other things, as of course it did. Do you think that fine wine and heavy metal share anything in common?
Well, if you dig, I'm pretty sure you can have a lot of differences, and especially, when you're a fan of Barolo, or since we're talking about wines of Greece in here, Xinomavro, then these forms of wine are not immediately appealing but hugely rewarding once you pay a bit of attention and you have been sort of calibrating your idea about what wine can be. The same could be said about heavy metal. It's appalling for most of the people out there. However, trust me on that, it can be very technical, very artistic, very theatrical and all that. So we're living in the world where instant appeal is something that most people are looking for, whether they register that in their minds or not. But for me, looking beyond the instant is very rewarding. I have seen that in music, in wine, in books, in all sort of things.
Absolutely. And so we need to, in North America, and for me personally, need to get past the names of grapes and regions that may not be easy for us to pronounce, but the reward is, I mean, the wines I've tried from Greece are phenomenal. So we just need to get a bit more comfortable with them because they're great food wines too, all of which we'll get into. So tell us about one of your memorable wine moments, maybe when you were delivering a presentation in Russia.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. For many years, I have been doing a lot of work promoting Greek wines, meaning the wines of Greece. So I'm promoting Greek wines every single moment of my life. But for many years, I was traveling around the world, including the US and Canada, promoting Greek wines in specific sort of wine masterclasses organized by the Wines of Greece and local partners, of course. Okay. So at some point it was St. Petersburg, we have been inviting a lot of people that were mainly involved in importing houses, buyers, because the penetration of Greek wines on that market was pretty minimal. So asking sommeliers to join us was pretty much enough, because you were not having the wines available. So initially we wanted the buyers to be there, hopefully being impressed by the quality, and then buy some stuff, and then at a later stage we could do a bit of going around in restaurants and inviting sommeliers, which means that a lot of buyers were straight competitors. And of course, that's a bad thing to say, but of course they were not really in big competition trying to grab that wine. I was pushing the notion that, Greek wine is a nice to have. It wouldn't be a must at that point. And they were competitive mainly about different champagnes that were important, different French wines, and, the big names. So there were quite a few competitors in the room, and it was a very competitive spirit, and suddenly some people started talking from across the table. Then they stopped talking and they started shouting, and to cut a long story short, they started fighting. They
like fist fighting?
Yes,
physical.
Fighting.
At a wine event. I've never heard of it.
Yes, I was like, okay, now I've seen it all. I tried to be in the middle, but not too much in the middle.
No.
Because, that was above my pay grade. Some people tried to pull them apart. They failed initially, but then they succeeded. I was shocked. I mean, I was speechless.
Surely they weren't arguing over the wood grain and oak aging or something. Did you ever find out what they were arguing about?
No. Well, of course, everything happened in Russian, and Russian is non-existent, so I had no idea. I was a bit scared to ask the people that were allowed to remain, because they were removed from the room we're doing the masterclass. I mean, that was bizarre. That was
a masterclass in wine fist fighting. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it had what can we say? It had a really bizarre theater or bizarre movie, like a Monty Python scene, something like that. But I have to say that. After years and years of promoting Greek wine, not just me, but the producers, all the people out there, now I could almost imagine that two people would be getting in a fist fight to capture the best, the most desirable Greek wines. We're not no ones anymore.
I want that fighting spirit to come out in favor of Greek wines. Okay, so you tell us also about the time when you were leaving Napa Valley, the coveted winery of Dominus, which I think is owned by Chateau Petrus or Christian Moyeux, before heading to the airport. What happened there?
Okay, those were the days. I mean, if anyone from the airport authorities of the world or the scanning machine producers listens to this, please do your best. Save us from this ordeal, because pastimes were far better. Okay, there is an Institute of Masters of Wine symposium in Napa Valley, and then you mentioned that I am the managing director of Aeolus, which is an importing company, and we work with Christian Wax. Jean-Pierre Wax is the company. We work quite a lot, so we used to do Petrus, but then in 2013 they moved to Christian's brother in distribution. We work with La Fleur Petrus, with Trotanois, with Belair Monange, but also we do Dominus and now Ulysses in Napa Valley. At that time it was just Dominus. So I arrived there, and we had to move appointments of some sort shortly beforehand, and it was me tasting at Dominus and then getting my car, getting into the San Francisco airport and fly via Paris to Athens. So it was very last minute. So Christian Wax, very kindly and opulently as possible, as usual, I was having 7 barrel samples to taste from the current vintage, and then he prepared a 7 or 8 vertical of Dominus. So it was like 7 bottles, 50 cl bottles with a plastic screw top, and then several bottles of a vertical of Dominus.
Wow.
At the end of the tasting, I said, I have to leave. You're flying with Konstantinos, with Air France. And Christian looks shocked, like, oh, poor you, poor you. Or Air France wine is really bad. And
that's shocking. I would think it would be great, given how much wine is so important to their economy.
You're absolutely right. And he wasn't aware that I was flying economy. All right. If he was thinking that where he flies wine is bad in Air France, then imagine the economy. And suddenly he takes all the small air bottles, 50 cl bottles, empties them in the spittoon, and then said, out of the vintages, which is your 7 favorite? And he started decanting the sort of like Dominus 88 and Dominus 83 in these ball bottles, get a sticker, and gets the vintage on the sticker, grabs a bag and say, that's yours, that will get you through Athens. That was 2004, where the liquid restrictions were not in place. That's why I'm begging all the airport authority officials or the
to reconsider
producers to reconsider or do things faster. So I'm walking in, luggage check, everything. I'm walking with my hand luggage in place with all the Dominus. It was like 3.5 liters of Dominus.
Wow.
I was flying economy, but at that time, Air France, I'm not sure if they're around, they have one of these planes I was flying with, they have a little bump on the top, so it's 2 stories, and I was flying at the top floor, right at the back, really deep economy, really cheap economy ticket. At that time, they had business class and first class, and at first class they had a sommelier.
Wow. An onboard sommelier. Oh, wow.
Onboard sommelier. We take off San Francisco, and I say, can I have a word with a sommelier? They go like, why? Because I want to have a chat with sommelier. And then after like half an hour, a sommelier with raised eyebrow arrives by my seat and says, what can I do for you, sir? And I explain the situation. Then both eyebrows go up, says, give me a minute. And after like 10 minutes arrives, where is your bag on the overhead compartment, grabs it and says, follow me, sir. Instant upgrade, unfortunately not to first class, but to business class.
Well, that's pretty good. Wow.
On the condition that I would be sharing. It was a 13-hour flight. Even myself couldn't really drink all 3.5 liters of different vintages.
That's Dominus. One sly sommelier.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that even the pilot might have, for sure, the pilots had a sniff. I'm not sure whether they had a sip.
Those were different days. Those are definitely different days.
Price-wise as well, because nowadays 3.5 liters of Dominus cost as half my car or something.
Oh, I know. That's a
Yeah.
premium cult wine from Napa. Okay, so aside from living in Greece, what sparked your initial passion for Greek wines?
Greek wine is within the DNA of Greek people. Even if you don't think about wine, even if you know nothing about wine, we love Greek wine. If I can put, my 14-year-old Konstantinos passing by a window where the Scorpions Blackout LP was blasting out was
This is when you were 14.
inner life.
Yeah.
Then 7 years later, my 21st-year-old self was
Okay.
walking past a wine shop in Piraeus that wasn't there like a week ago. And I saw a bottle of wine that costed at that time 3,200 drachmas. That was because before the euro, so it was drachmas. That was 91.
I wonder how much that would be approximately in dollars.
Nowadays,
estimate.
it would be something like $7.
Oh, $7. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at that time, from my 21-year-old self, from my social and financial backgrounds, my family's backgrounds, spending $7 on a bottle of wine was like, what?
Extravagant.
Yes, are
Yeah.
you that rich? To give you an idea, when I was going with my family in a taverna, because that was the place we're going, spending $2 on a bottle of wine was pretty edgy. It was like right there with my limitations.
Right.
So for me, it was eye-opening. So being very naive, if not audacious, I walk into the shop and I say, why this bottle costs that amount of money? So the poor guy says, well, I'm really sorry, let me check whether I did something wrong, and it was something iffy with the invoice. Checks the invoice that he got the wine, says, no, that's a price. Why? Well, I don't really know, I'm new in the business, but I'm having an opening party, the winemaker is going to be there, so come, you're my invite, so yes, please show up and ask him all the questions you need. I walked into the shop at the opening party some like a week after that with my then girlfriend, now my wife, I was born married, and we have a chat with the winemaker, and I walked out of the shop feeling completely captivated. I bought a bottle of that wine. I still have it in my cellar, unopened. But I walked way back home, and I was talking with my wife, Tonia, and I said, bloody hell, I want to do that. At that time, I was studying mechanical engineering at the National Technical University of Athens, which is pretty much the top of the tree for Greek universities. I mean, it's not Stanford, but it's pretty damn good. And moving into the world of wine was something extremely risky. But I was fortunate because I had my parents really not caring what I do, but sticking to me, feeling happy to doing that. Antonia was immensely supportive. Heavy metal career was not very supportive. So actually, my hopes on becoming a heavy metal megastar were going down exactly at the time that my sort of wine hopes were picking up.
I think that's good. I think you made the right choice.
Well, I hope the wine believes the same thing.
I'm sure it does. And then, so what made you want to become a master of wine? Because there were none in your country. So was it just that desire to keep learning?
Okay, that happened when I was 21. I started learning more and more about wine. And by the age of 24, I knew a few things about wine, but I was quite an anomaly, statistical anomaly, a 24-year-old boy that is interested into wine. At that time, we had some clubs that they were doing not master classes, tastings. It was more like a booze up with people that, what was the South Park quote, wine tasting is like getting drunk, but it seems more classy. I think that was. I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to even say the word South Park in this podcast.
Oh, that's fine. Yes.
So I got involved into a club, and there was a guy that was selling glasses, started a company selling wine glasses to restaurants. And there was a very famous and very expensive, for the time, restaurant in place called Bajazzo. It was owned by a German that was the ex-head chef of Shah of Persia. So Shah of Persia was kicked out by Persia, by Iran, I think back in 1977. So he started a restaurant in Amsterdam, then moved to Greece, Athens, and said, I need a sommelier. No one ever had a sommelier before that guy. No one was asking for a sommelier before 1994. And the guy selling glasses said, okay, Klaus Feuerbach was the chef's name. I have someone that might do the trick. So as I am the first Greek sommelier back in '94. There were, of course, people working as waiters that were keen on wine and doing things with wine. But the word sommelier, inochos, the one who pours the wine, is the proper ancient Greek word. It was me back in '94. I was something like a poster boy for the wine industry doing this thing, but I was revolted by the fact that most people in Greece had no idea about wine, and it was, we have an expression in Greece, I'll try to translate it, it's who you declare yourself to be. So if I've been in Bordeaux one time and I had a Grand Cru Burgundy a couple of times, I was an expert. I was a self-proclaimed expert. And then I could do consulting, I could do wine lists in restaurants, I could do everything I wanted to be. At that time we had only a winemaking school, university actually, in Greece, but learning how to make wine is something mildly different from selling wine, communicating wine, or understanding what's the difference between Napa Valley and Sonoma. So I said, I want to be something about wine, and it shouldn't be winemaking because I had getting dirty and then moving around places every other vintage. And then I wanted to do something that would be calibrating my standard. I would be going out and saying, I want to be this. But I managed to achieve that level. Low, high, I don't care. So the winemaker that I met back in '91 said, I export wines around US and UK, and they say that there is a qualification called Master of Wine that is very prestigious. So I go, okay,
sign me up.
Try and sign me up, yeah. I went off and I started living in London. How little I knew, I almost said to my wife, Tonya, keep the bed warm, darling. I'm in London, and within a few months I'll be back. And then I moved to London, and I had a big slap mark over my cheeks of the first couple of weeks. I was like, that will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I lived in London for 5 years. At that time, living in London was possibly the only thing that could save you from zeroing your chances of passing BMW. Still, London is a beautiful place for wine lovers. At that time, I was tasting about 1,000 wines a week.
Wow, 1,000 wines a week. My God, didn't you get tired?
No, I'm sorry. 1,000 wines a month.
A month, okay. Still, that's still a lot of wine.
I mean, I was living in Notting Hill at that time.
Beautiful neighborhood.
It was possible for people like me living in Notting Hill. And by walking distance, either a Saturday or a Sunday, you could visit 6, 7 places, wine shops,
Mm-hmm.
and every single shop would be having 5, 6, 10 wines that
Okay.
would be open for people to taste, walk
Okay.
in, taste, buy a case, and you get, one bottle for free.
Oh,
And
that's
after
great.
a bit of time, people knew me. I was the Greek widow that was trying to become a master of wine, and they were opening bottles that I wanted to taste. Oh, never had a Chenin from Loire. Okay, Konstantinos, let me open one for you. And then, it was Australia Day tastings. Within a day, you could do easily 100 wines.
Mhm.
So I cannot do that.
There you
anymore.
go.
I cannot do that anymore.
Well, that's quite the journey. So we should move on to Greece, of course.
Let's stick it to Greece.
Yes. So, Greece, let's just paint a visual map. I think most people know where Greece is, but just very quickly, where is Greece on the map, and what
Okay.
are the neighboring countries?
You are having Europe,
Yep.
and then you are having the Balkan Peninsula,
Okay.
right towards the the east,
Yeah.
and the little piece that is the sort of ending point of the Balkan Peninsula, which essentially is between Italy and Turkey. Some people say that this is the case culturally as well.
Mhm.
So this is Greece.
Okay.
Greece is a very complex, in a topographic level, country. There are many reasons about that, and is surrounded by sea, bar the north side, and we're having, I think, per square kilometers, we have the longest beach coastline as a country around the world, or very close to the top.
Wow.
It's a pretty bizarre country. So it's Greece, Mediterranean Sea, southern part and east part of Europe, close to Turkey, but not quite close.
Okay. And there are about 700 wineries. About how much does Greece produce a year? Like, we have about 800 wineries in Canada, so I'm wondering if it's kind of the same in terms of production. What approximately how much do they produce?
Okay, I'm walking around in wine exhibitions or wine shows around the world, and I see a number of people, even wine professionals, that have a widely different expectations of what Greek wine is. Some people are surprised that Greece is producing any wine. That happened to me, and someone could say that this is even more bizarre than the fist fight in the St. Petersburg I've witnessed. And we have other people that think that Greek wine is sort of commodities, a country that produces quite a bit of wine. So prepare to be shocked, I think, but Bordeaux produces about 2 times the wine that the entire Greek nation,
Wow.
country is producing.
Wow.
Just one region in France,
Yeah.
arguably, a big
The whole
region,
country. My
produces
goodness.
2 times.
Yeah.
This is a message that I would like to get across tonight. If you're having a bottle of Greek wine in your cellar, or if you can walk to a wine shop and buy a bottle of wine from Greece, you are buying a very rare wine. A very rare wine.
Right.
We're buying a bottle of Bordeaux, and we think that that's rare. No, it's not rare.
No, there's like 10,000 producers in Bordeaux, and we're talking 700 wineries in Greece, so it is artisanal and small and, yeah, as you say, rare.
It's getting even weirder, I think. We are exporting only 10% of our production.
Ah, okay.
We drink our wine. And
Right.
then tourists coming in are thirsty for our wine.
Sure.
So we export just 10% of what we produce. We export basically because we want, because we crave for that mid-December visit to New York to pretend we're working while we're enjoying the festive season. So it's a very different mentality.
Yeah.
So very tiny production. But you said the artisan scale quote, and that's very important. I mean,
Yep.
we are buying a bottle of okay, I'll use a Greek related winery, so Corinne Mentzelopoulos will not be very aggressive towards me. We're talking about Chateau Margaux.
Yep.
And people pay a lot of money to buy a bottle of Chateau Margaux, which is a gorgeous wine. It's fantastic, mythical wine. and they think they're buying something rare. No, they're not. You go to Osaka, you go to Rio de Janeiro, you go to US, any city that drinks wine in the US, and you have 2, 5, 10 restaurants at least that sell Chateau Margaux, because they're producing 200,000 bottles a year. There are very few quality Greek wines, that even wineries, that are as much. There are only 10 estates in Greece that reach the average land holding of hectares in France. We are tiny.
Tiny. Tiny's good, though. So what was the most unexpected insight you discovered while you were writing the book?
It was, well, all sort of things. Grape varieties that I've never had, grape varieties that were up and coming, producers that had, after I started digging in, a completely different background from what I had in my mind. The world of wine in Greece is old and new at the same time. We have mechanical engineers, we have marble producers, we have artists falling in love in wine and saying, yeah, let's do that. But because it's a very vibrant stage, we don't pay enough attention to the stories before these people landed wine. And these stories are important because they are, as you said, artisan scale. We don't have the magnets of what you see in places like California. People that they made their fortune to A, and then they think that moving to B, meaning wine, is something fancy, is a lifestyle, and it will look great on their personal, LinkedIn accounts. It's more humane, should I say?
Lots of people stories. And what's a surprising piece of wine-related trivia or a piece of history relating to wine in Greece that you think that even seasoned wine professionals would not know?
Okay, how much time do you have?
Short answer, so we can get through this.
Okay, the great thing about Greek wine is that we have no idea what Greek wine is all about. We are having new grape varieties, new regions emerging by the vintage. I'll give you an example. Malagousia. Malagousia is a great grape variety, and then we have about 200 producers producing.
Is it red or white?
It's a white. It's
white. Okay.
For me, is an extremely forthcoming yet very complex grape variety. It's quite intense on the nose. It can range from muscatty to minty to tropically. On the palate, manages to be quite round, even, creamy, without the need of extended lees contact or oak, but still it has that amazing freshness. So, be surprised. Back in 1993, we had the first varietal Malagousia, the first wine called Malagousia in the world, in Greece, in wherever you might be caring to call. So, one of the most important grape varieties has been around for, how long was that? Like 30, 40 years. That is bound to happen again and again and again. You're going to Italy, and pretty much every area that can make wine does, or is verified as not very exciting. Grape varieties, they have the whole thing sorted out by now. Sure. It's highly unlikely that you will see a new up-and-coming grape variety coming up from Austria. Georgia, maybe Georgia. In Greece, I'm pretty sure that if we are good to our health and we do this thing in 20 years, I hope you're around doing these magnificent projects, then I'm pretty sure at that time I can come up with 3, 4, 5 names of grape varieties.
New grapes being discovered.
I have no idea. No
and yet
idea.
These are ancient varieties, like they've been around, like they were discovered 30 years ago, but they've been in Greece for a long time, right?
Okay, I'm repeatedly calling Greece Jurassic Park for Vitis vinifera. The genetic complexity two ways: the genetic complexity across clones of the same variety, and the genetic complexity across varieties is phenomenal. I'll give you an example. Italy is producing 55 more times more wine than we do. So Italy is a giant when compared to what we're producing in a year. Italy, 55 times larger vineyard, has about 1,000 grape varieties.
Mm-hmm.
We are having 250 that are commercially available, close to that. We have about 70 that are up and coming, so we are having more than 300. So the packing of DNA diversity is mind-blowing in Greece. Also, what is really bizarre, it can be explained by the topography, is that we are having a lot of grape varieties, and 99.9% of these grape varieties are endemic. Endemic is a Greek word meaning being found only in one place. So you stroll around Europe, because the topography is a bit more flat and the exchange was a bit different over the centuries, and you have that grape in, you have Kekfrankos in Hungary, and you have people saying Blaufrankis in Austria, and then we do a DNA profiling, although the name were pretty similar, was pretty similar anyway, and you discover that Kekfrankos is the same thing with Blaufrankis, primitive with Zinfandel. The bizarre thing about Greek Vitis vinifera database is that very few grape varieties have been doing anything significant in the neighboring countries. We're having a lot of grape varieties in Italy bearing Greek names, Aglianico, which means Hellenico, Hellas, Greece, or Greco di Tufo. We know that these are related, are not related, I'm sorry. There were other reasons that got a Greek-sounding name, because in the ancient days, the Greek wines were the famous, so if a grape was good, they were saying, oh, Greco, Greco, that's Greco. Like we're drinking good sparkling wine, and we say this is champagne. So it's really a very old sort of mixer of DNA of Vitis vinifera, coupled with the great concept about consuming wine, celebrating wine that Greeks had at least the last 5 millennia. So it's work in progress. We're starting with something with a very raw diamond. Still, I believe it's a raw diamond. We're getting into polishing pieces, but still we have so much to discover.
That's exciting. So
and that
you
was
mentioned
a short answer, okay?
you mentioned the history. So Dionysus, of course, the Greek god of wine, embodies both celebration and chaos. How do you see that sort of his mythology influencing Greek wine culture today?
Well, it's that connection, I think, might be to some degree lost in terms of semantics, in terms of hardcore, proper, obvious relevance. But at the same time, as I'm saying, the DNA that created Dionysus still lives on.
Sure.
I'll tell you, however, this. We were not the first people making wine. Georgians, Mesopotamia, got the gong on that. Hats off. Thank you. We were not the first people, since you mentioned Dionysus, we were not the first people having a god that is related or even dedicated to wine. Egyptians had that before that. Phoenicians had that before that. But we did a lot of things for the first time. The first sommeliers in Ohoi were Greeks. The first wine writers, even someone could argue wine journalists, were Greek.
Oh, who is that?
Well, there are specific names. You can find them. I cannot.
Oh, you mean like Heraclitus or something like
Yes,
you're going way back
yes,
into ancient. I was thinking, there's somebody before Hugh Johnson? Yeah.
You are having the Greek symposia, and the whole notion, the whole format of consuming wine was essential in making sure that symposia were evolving into that amazing celebration of the human brain, the human intellect.
Because the symposia was the bringing together of ideas. I don't know what the etymology is of symposia, but yeah, wine was part of it, right?
Yes, and they were doing a very clever thing. They were eating, and that was the fast part, and then they were relaxing. Then the Inhoi were bringing out the wine, and they started talking. So undisturbed, relaxed. Everyone was supposed to be talking up his mind at that time. Women were not, unfortunately, allowed. So that celebration, that social fabric that had wine really woven into the tightest spots. That's the first time we see this happening in Homo sapiens. Legislation. We had appellations. Like
right, you were the first to come up with the Grand Cru, right, as well, like
we were not
cult wines?
Using the word Grand Cru, but yes, we had cult wines. There is evidence that you, if you wanted to buy wine from a specific area, you should be looking for specific amphora shape.
Okay.
Because that appellation was allowed to use only that shape amphora, like the flute bottle in Alsace, and all sort of these things. Specific seals on the amphora top. Only specific ports were allowed to have ships going out with this wine. I mean, we would be reaching France in the early 20th century to achieve that degree of sophistication.
And quality control as well.
Yes,
so
we have been there before everyone else.
There you go. We're just coming full circle now to understand where we began. So you emphasize the role of terroir in Greek winemaking, that unique combination of soil, climate, and other factors. What's the most extreme or unique terroir that you've encountered in Greece?
Okay, before I go there, because it's a very exciting thing to talk about the Greek terroir, I have to admit that I don't really care about terroir.
Okay.
As I'm saying, I am a lover, infatuatedly loving the Greek genius, the human genius. Well, genius can be everywhere. It was talking about Christian Wax. Even if you throw Christian Wax in the middle of nowhere, in nowhere land, he will be able to make an amazing wine.
True.
Because he's a true genius. He has an amazing brain, and that's what fascinates me about wine. I love people. I love clever guys making amazing things. Ibn Sadi, Stephen and Pruhensky. They have great wines.
From Australia, yeah.
It's their mind that blows my mind. But going to the Greek terroir, okay, a few things. Wherever you are in Greece, you're close to the sea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are an extremely mountainous country. We have a lot of mountains. Imagine it's the Balkan Peninsula digging into Mediterranean Sea that has, well, actually it's the other way around. We have Africa pulling up Greece. So the African plate is pushing towards Europe and Greece is lifted. Go to your nearest map and check the topography, the coastline. Africa is pretty straight. Europe, Mediterranean Europe, is crazy because it's being lifted up from the ocean. So we're very mountainous at the same time and very close to the sea in all places. Because of the mountains, we have very little plains. And wine is not essential, I'm afraid to say. So the little plains that we have in Greece are for proper food, although we consider wine being food. So we must have in that little plain that can be cultivated, we must grow our tomatoes, our lettuce, that stuff. And whatever is left, we go for two things, vines and olive groves, because these are cultivations that have very minute capacities in terms of water as well as nutrients.
So they can survive where other crops cannot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that has been the very definition of Darwinian evolution in terms of terroir in Greece. So we have been pushing our vines into places where vines were supposed to be behaving well. You go in other places, I won't say names, in a lot of New World places that, Europeans were going there, they wanted to have a bit of wine and they wanted to have that wine easy. You would never have people going up to Mosul or Mantinia or in even Aminteo in Greece, Mosul is Germany, by like making things easy. They were going for the flat places, the fertile plains. So, very little fertile lands, not dedicated to wine, a lot of high altitudes, a lot of different aspects, crazy topography, because Africa lifts us up. We have a lot of earthquakes, and that creates, you know that from San Andreas Fault in California, all the places that have a lot of earthquakes, that have crazy topographies. Japan, same story. Also, our seas around us have a lot of islands. Islands are becoming more and more important in the Greek wine scene. These islands have like shallow seas, so the sea behaves a bit differently. So all these permutations create an extremely complicated, crazy place. And the inquiring minds of people that know what they want to do, they superimpose that complexity of place to the complexity of the vitis vinifera genes, and boom, you're having Greek wine.
There you go. Well, let's talk about Santorini, because that's pretty extreme as a specific example. It's an island, it's volcanic. I read this, but how does it happen that they can produce wines of incredible depth, which usually means higher alcohol or some sort of complex layering, and freshness, which is usually reserved for describing light, zesty white wines? I mean, how do those two things come together on Santorini?
Okay, we had in the past few years a lot of people that studied viticulture in other places around the world, Australia, Davis, Bordeaux, and they just go to Santorini, they do a couple of vintages, and then they go out of the rooms, they throw in the fireplace their viticulture handbooks from the university, and they strike a match and just set them ablaze.
Okay, that's
because everything
dramatic.
you know is different. So
right.
Santorini, it's a volcanic island, which means that it has a very, very young soil. Can I go just a bit technical? A young soil is very coarse. Clay is the finest particle. So the younger the soil, the less clay it has. Santorini has zero clay, and phylloxera cannot survive. It's
that devastating
Santorini,
root louse that
yes.
killed all the vines in the 1800s in Europe. Yeah.
Yes, so there are places around the world that are phylloxera free. Santorini is phylloxera immune. You can take a pint of these bugs, throw them in the middle of Santorini, and nothing will happen.
Okay.
So the vines are allowed to grow their own roots in that soil, but above ground it's very windy, extremely hot. So the vines have to kept low on ground to capture that little humidity getting up from the caldera of the volcano, but at the same time being protected from the wind. So people have been using their mind, and maybe out of practicality, maybe out of the need to create something that is beautiful, they started training these vines as baskets. Just Google it, Santorini vine, you'll see these baskets lying on the ground.
They're training them in a basket shape?
Yes, basket shape.
Oh, so are they actually putting physical baskets and the vines circle around, grow around a basket?
No. They form the basket by weaving the canes. It takes a bit of years.
Okay. So they grow circularly. All right.
Yes. So everything that is to the periphery, the small shoots and the young bunches are being torn apart by the wind. And then you have only the middle bit that survives.
Wow.
That's why we're having naturally extremely low yields in Santorini.
Okay.
You're having, can I talk like hectoliters per hectare?
Sure.
Is it a bit too?
Yeah, give it. Yeah, go ahead.
So, a hecto is a Greek word. Hectoliter is 100 liters. So you go to Grand Cru Burgundy, and then they say we are doing 30 hectoliters per hectare. 30 hectoliters per hectare is getting is 3,000 liters out of a hectare of land.
Okay.
You go in Sauternes, and they say we do 12 hectoliters per hectare, and they're lying. Because Sauternes, you pick only the nobly rotten grapes and you leave the rest for other wines or to be left on the vine. So the vines are producing 50, 60 hectoliters, but they select that berry.
Okay.
In Santorini, you're having 12, 10, 8 hectoliters per hectare.
So very low yield. Yeah.
Extremely low yield. And, this is in Santorini, one of the most beautiful places in the world where the tourism industry goes bonkers. You're not in the middle of nowhere in a place that it's wine or nothing. You are in Santorini. Back to the vines. Every about 40, 30 years, the basket gets too bulky, too difficult to work. It's chopped apart, and a new cane from the old root system starts a new basket. So we have in Santorini a lot of vines where it's a 40-year-old basket on top, above ground, and then the root system is 4 centuries old.
Oh, wow.
4 centuries ago, Bordeaux was a swamp.
Okay.
There was not a single vine in Bordeaux.
They had to dike it all to get rid of the water,
Yes.
The flooding.
So, this is Greece, this is Santorini. But what you said about the combination of freshness and high alcohol, we have the extreme wind stress, we have that very old root system supporting a relatively younger above ground physiology, and then we have the glory of Assyrtiko. Assyrtiko is a fantastic grape variety.
And red or white?
Okay, Assyrtiko is a white. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, Assyrtiko has gender dysphoria. I'm really convinced about that. Assyrtiko knows it's a black grape variety, but it's a white grape variety. And every moment, every day, looks at the mirror and saying, I am a black grape. And then produces wine. All the people around the world see a white wine, and they say, no, you're a white grape. Assyrtiko is one of the few, if any, white grapes that produce wine that can compete with red wines in many of the red wine qualities.
So the depth and complexity. So they're not letting skin contact. That's how they keep it white, obviously, right?
No, it's a white grape. It's a white grape.
Yeah. But so they're taking off the skins for skin contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a grape that manages at the same time to have huge levels of acidity, while the alcohol in Santorini can be quite high. It can be 14.5%, sometimes lower, but you don't feel it because of the freshness of the minerality. There is very little fruit in Assyrtiko. It's all about minerality.
Minerality and acidity, right?
Yes. If you run courses and you want to show your students what minerality is, grab a bottle of Santorini and they will immediately understand the concept. Extreme acidity, huge minerality, a lot of character, a lot of concentration. You get Santorini Assyrtiko in your mouth, and the whole broadness is like a red wine. That's why I'm saying that Assyrtiko has that gender dysphoria.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. And so Santorini, you mentioned the tourism is huge. Greece is a beautiful country. Why is Santorini so popular? It's beautiful, I assume, but is there something unique, or do you have tips on if we visit there?
It's the caldera. It's one of the youngest volcanoes in the world. The view is breathtaking.
And the caldera is the name of the volcano?
A caldera is a geologic term defining that sudden slope that forms around an underwater volcano. So it's a dramatic cliff, and then you overlook the volcano. Every single person has to be at least once in Santorini. I know that by saying that, I'm ruining the sort of future potential of new vineyards in Santorini, but just see the pictures. Google.
Absolutely,
Santorini.
yeah. I see the sparkling turquoise blue Mediterranean Sea. It just seems gorgeous. And what would you pair with a Asertico from Santorini? What would be some of your favorite dishes to pair with it?
All right. Okay. The short answer is anything that is grilled seafood, even white meat would go fantastic. The slightly longer answer is that I hate food and wine matching.
Okay. So out with terroir, out with food and wine matching.
I think that food and wine matching overcomplicates an already overcomplicated product, which is wine. And I think that the French style of food and wine matching that now all the people around the world think that it's the mantra, first course with this wine, second course with that wine, third course with this wine. I think it's silly, and it doesn't create good companies, doesn't create good conversations. In Greece, we put everything in the middle and we share. And there is a reason why in the US you call that family style, because this is the way families eat. All the mammals eat like that. Imagine, the leopards, the families having a kill in the middle and the two generations eating together. It's very essential to share food.
Sure.
So when you're having everything in the middle, at the first time you can have the same dishes, and you can have a carnivore, an omnivore, and a vegan sharing the same table, and not sharing the same dishes, but sharing the experience of sharing. So the concept of eating this wine with this food goes out of the window.
Right.
Because you have a bite of some shrimp,
Goes with everything.
a bite of anchovies, and then maybe some grilled cheese, and then back to the anchovies because they were really good.
Right.
So you need things that really quench your thirst and clear your palate. This has been the defining feature of selecting these grape varieties in Greece. We don't want to have this go with that, like Chèvre with Sauvignon Blanc. No. We want exciting, fresh, clean palating wines that would go with a huge range of different dishes. So Asertico have 5-6 different things on the table at the salad. At the same time, like a salad, have some fish, some white meat, and have a bottle of Asertico. You'll be amazed with the versatility. You'll be amazed with the experience, I think.
Well, another one of my favorite white wines is Moscafiliero. It's very floral, very expressive. How would you contrast that with Asertico, especially from Santorini?
Okay. Asertico is relatively low intensity on the nose, but very mineral. Moscafiliero is very floral and very intense, very rose petally. Both have excellent acidity. Acidity is a common characteristic of most Greek wine. Think about matching these wines with many different foods and need your palate being refreshed every time you have a sip. But Moscafiliero is relatively low in alcohol. We had for lunch Moscafiliero that was 11% alcohol, full
that's nice.
flavor. I mean, can you remember, Natalie, the days we were drinking wines that were 11.5, 12% alcohol?
I think that was before my time. They've never been that low, other than, maybe a German Riesling, that sort of thing.
Yes.
But then you get the trade-off with the sweetness.
The myth lives on in Greece. We can still get a lot of Greek wines with relatively low levels of alcohol. And we know because, the whole mark sign of quality in Greece is only one, the empty bottle. We sit together to share a few dishes, and the bottle is not empty at the end of the evening, no matter the flavors, the complexity, the length, the complexity of texture, or blah, 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 all the things we care to say about wine and quality doesn't really matter if we cannot get a second glass.
Absolutely. Now, you've already said Greece is very warm. How do they get the low alcohol wines? Are they picking early? Is it canopy, leaf management? Like, how are they managing to keep the alcohol low on Muscafilero?
Right. Two things. The first thing is that we are living in a cool climate dictatorship. It's cool climate, it's good, it's warm climate, it's bad. I'm only drinking cool climate wines and all that stuff. No, warm climates can produce amazing wines. Then people think they go to Crete and they spend 10 days there, no rain, sun, 35 degrees Celsius, I'm not sure how much is that in Fahrenheit, and they say, good for holidays, summer holidays, but bad for wine. There is no way you can make good wine in these places. No. Greece has a lot of places that are really cold, that might be even colder than specific parts of Loire. And then, during all this symbiotic relationship, co-evolution between people that want to enjoy a bit more wine and have different foods and all these different grape varieties, we selected the grapes that can give full flavors at low levels of alcohol. So that has been the outstanding produce of centuries of going back and forth, trial and error on behalf of Greek people making wine and enjoying wine at the same time.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And then on the red side, what would you say is the flagship red wine or grape in Greece?
Right, okay, we have a Georgitiko in Nemea that is a charmer.
Can you spell that?
It's Agiortiko. I mean, even I can. It's
Agiorgitiko. Okay.
Oh, that was a good spelling. That was a good pronunciation.
Okay, so I'm not going to do it again.
So it's a Georgitiko in Nemea, which is in Peloponnese, which is a charmer. Ripe berry fruit, but not overripe, soft velvety tannins, very round palate. I mean, you cannot put the glass down after.
That sounds like Pinot Noir in a way,
yes,
a little bit.
Yes,
yeah.
For sure. And then you have Xinomavro up in the north. Xinomavro is the Barolo-like, the heavy metal-like side of Greek wine that might be a bit challenging for the novice drinker because it's high acidity, really high tannin, very grippy tannin. The nose is more tomato and spices and the leather rather than jolly good fruit. But for the people that care, it can be one of the most amazing grape varieties in the world. So these two, I would pick up these two.
Okay.
The charmer and the more intriguer.
Oh, those sound great. So yeah, you've already talked about how old the vines can be, or at least the root system. Are there any other major regions? I know we're condensing this so quickly, but are there other wine regions that you really wanted to highlight? Maybe one or two in Greece.
Now, Nausa in northern Greece is the sort of the powerhouse of Xinomavro producers.
Okay.
Nausa, I can spell that. It's Naoussa.
Okay, Nausa.
Nausa is the powerhouse of Xinomavro. You are having, as I said, Nemea, further down in Peloponnese, many islands. I mean, people say that the islands are the Greek wine next level, 2.0, I would say 15.0. Crete, Tinos, Paros, Cephalonia, all over the place.
Right.
I mean, again, how much time do you have? Every single place producing wine in Greece has at least one producer that is a must try.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so beautiful place to visit. I think that's probably the best way to kind of learn about
We're
the
waiting
different.
for you. Okay, we're waiting
Thank
for
you. Thank you for the invite. One thing I wanted to cover too was Retsina. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes.
So it's made with pine resin from the bark of the pine tree. To me, it's always smelt like pine resin. I find it very strong, almost like, dare I say, lemon pledge, like a cleaner. Is it an acquired taste? How did that develop? Why did people want to create this? And is it just an acquired taste?
Okay, what is Retsina? Retsina is like a proper white wine.
Okay.
When you go through the alcoholic fermentation, you just dip a small dollop of pine resin into the fermentation barrel, vat, whatever, and there you have the Retsina. We started doing this because it was something like a preservative. So when you were having some oxidation kicking in, then you cannot really spot it. It's pretty much the same way why a lot of a lot of people around the world started doing spicy food. Spicy food, it's a bit more difficult to go astray, to go off, and then if it's a bit off, you can still enjoy it because you're getting more of the spice. Kick in that.
Okay.
And we enjoy that because of that interplay I said about food and wine.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to say that Retsina was the longest nail in the coffin of Greek wine. Now I think Retsina is one of the biggest hopes.
Really?
Because many Retsinas had a bad name because people were getting lazy and they say, okay, no one could smell the bad wine. Make bad wine and then throw a bit of resin in, a lot of resin, so we can sort them out.
That's like some winemakers were using too much oak to cover flaws. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So nowadays people craft some amazing Retsinas, fresh, exquisite wines, coupled with carefully selected pine resin. I mean, pine resin can be very different and can be very influential of what you're tasting in your glass. In my mind, Finocchieri from Jerez and Retsina are twins separated at birth.
Okay.
And the way all these intellectuals crave, praise, drink Finocchieri, I beg them to try some Retsina and praise and understand what we have been doing for millennia.
Because sherry, the fortified wine from Spain, has a flor yeast thing that settles on it, and it gets a sort of materized or a oxidized taste.
Yes.
So yeah, that's interesting. It is okay if I can understand it through that lens, because I actually have come to enjoy Finocchieri. It took me a while, so maybe I'll warm up to Retsina as well.
Retsina's
eventually.
Up next.
I meant to ask you about this a little earlier, but I don't want to miss it. So the Greek wine industry faced challenges during the country's major financial crisis that was around 2007 to 2010-ish. How did it benefit the wine industry, or how did they improve as a result of it?
Well, necessity is the mother of invention. Meaning that back in the 80s, a lot of producers were not having enough wine to sell even in their own vicinity. They have been becoming overly reliant in their national market, if not local market. And overnight, that market has been dealing with huge financial problems. So they said, okay, we have to get out. We have to communicate Greek wine more. We have to make better labels. We have to come up with names that people in other countries or even tourists coming in Greece can pronounce. Stop the ploplos names that we see in a lot of Greek wine labels. So yes, hard times create great men, and then great men create soft times. But I hope that we're not going to see soft times creating soft men. We'll keep on the hard work, pushing forward, making Greek wine go really ballistically cosmopolitan.
Right. Well, all those soft men just need a hard, tough, strong woman, I think. But so the financial crisis really forced them to modernize labels, improve winemaking techniques. I mean, as you say, it was like adversity, having to deal with that just sort of kick-started the whole quality revolution in the country.
I think that the winemaking and viticultural part was already there. We were making pretty stunning wines before the financial crisis.
Okay.
The thing that we were neglecting was communicating that quality, especially in a format that would be applicable to other markets than Greece. I think this is where the huge boost took place.
Okay. And are you, I think I know the answer, you're optimistic about the potential and future of Greek wines? What do you see happening 5 years out, 10 years out from now? The discovery of new, you've already said the discovery of new grapes, that sort of thing, but what else do you see on the horizon for Greek wines?
New grape varieties, even newer areas, more young people getting into the wine production part. But then, if I had to bet on something about wine, Greek wine, I would be betting on the increased acceptance of the quality of Greek wine in export markets. I bet that in 5 years, more Greek people are going to, more international wine professionals are going to engulf Greek wine. More sommeliers are going to list Greek wines or more Greek wines. They're going to see that Greek wine has a lot more to offer, maybe not just Santorini. I think the acceptance front would be the new frontier. It would be the sort of increased dimension of Greek wine in 5 years' time from here. I mean, five times in one production term is a tiny amount of time. 5 years in wine market terms is more significant. That's why I'm betting on that.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Well, this has just flown by. I've learned a lot. Thank you so much about Greek wines. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
Loads of things. We should do that again.
Yes, we'll have to have a part 2 and 3 because I had to cut out a lot of questions because your answers are so vivid and informative. Where can we find you and your book online, Konstantinos?
Académie du Vin is my publisher.
Yes.
They have a fantastic e-shop. Get there. Otherwise, if you Google wspc.gr, which is my wine school, you can order a copy from there, and by doing that you might be having the added benefit of having that signed by me. And if you drop me a line on the social media, like Konstantinos, I just bought the book, that's to my dear friend Alice or whatever, I can do that for sure.
Excellent. Well, we'll put the links in the show notes to your website, Académie du Vin, so people can find you and your online school and or your wine school and everything else that you do. Konstantinos, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I've learned so much. It's terrific. We do have to do a part 2 and 3 and 4. So I will say goodbye for now, but this conversation should be continued.
Natalie, it has been my dream being with you on this. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I hope we converted at least a few of Greek wine apostles.
Oh, I'm sure you did. All right. Thanks for now, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.